Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1946 Cleveland Indians AL-MLB baseball season. The arrival of Bill Veeck, the greatest owner of a Cleveland sports team ever, in my opinion, and 2 years away from the 1948 Cleveland Indians World Series Championship. 71 years ago, our last title. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball. Home games were played at League Park, the last year at League Park, and also at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. The Tribe's one-loss record was kind of tough. They finished in sixth place with a winning percentage of, with a record of 68-86, winning percentage of .442, 36 games out of first. The first place team was the Boston Red Sox, 104-50, winning percentage of .675. Wow. Second place, the Detroit Tigers, 92-62, 12 games out of first. Third place, the New York Yankees, 87-67. Fourth place, Washington Senators, 76-78. Fifth place, the Chicago White Sox, 74-80. Sixth place, the Cleveland Indians, 68-86. Seventh place, the St. Louis Browns, 66-88. And in eighth and last place, Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics, 49-105, winning percentage of .318. Gosh, 55 games out of first. I'm reading a fine book. The title is Ty Cobb, A Terrible Beauty by Charles Learson, 2015. And this book sets the record straight that Ty Cobb was not a bad guy. He was a good guy. He was actually troubled. Wonderful book. Now, as I said, this was the last season for the Tribe at League Park. And the last game played at League Park by the Cleveland Indians was on September 21st, 1946. Only 2,772 fans came to see the Tribe fall 5-3 against the Tigers. And there was no ceremony. It wasn't known that this was the last game that the Tribe would play there, so there was no ceremony, and wasn't a big crowd. And this was the end of an era. The 1895 Cleveland Spiders had won a championship in the MLB, and the 1920 Tribe had also won a World Series title there. May 15th at League Park, the Tribe had a doubleheader sweep of the Philadelphia Athletics as Mel Harder and Steve Gromek both threw shutouts. The Tribe won those games 3-0 and 5-0. Ken Krasalovic and Brian Fritz, the authors who wrote a wonderful book about League Park, wrote this about the last game after it was played at League Park. Quote, "The corner of East 66th was quiet. The Indians would not return. 55 years of big league baseball at League Park had come to an end." League Park was demolished in 1951. In 2014, there was a restoration. The old ticket house was turned into the Baseball Heritage Museum, and a section of the brick wall on the first base side of the field still stands. There's a baseball field there, and it's called Fannie M. Lewis Community Park. It's a AstroTurf. So baseball games are being played on that site. In 1946, 38% of MLB players were World War veterans who had missed the 1945 season or more. The 1946 spring training for the Tribe was in Clearwater, Florida. The first time they went south after 3 springs at Purdue in the north, in Indiana, because of the wartime restrictions. Jackie Robinson, in 1946, was in the minor leagues for the Brooklyn Dodgers system playing for the Montreal Royals. He led the International League in hitting, and he helped the Royals win the Little World Series championship. And so this was the beginning of the integration of MLB. The following year, of course, he'd play for the Dodgers, and he had a lot of hard times, especially in the South, and although he was treated extremely well in Montreal, Canada. Cleveland hired Max Patkin as a comedian during the 46th season, and he was a sometimes coach as well. The Tribe attendance in 46 was 1,057,289. That set a team record. First time the Indians had 1 million fans in a year. And it was up 500,000 fans from the 1945 season, an average of 13,555 per game. Now back to League Park, the Cleveland Buckeyes in the Negro Leagues played there until 1950. There were high school games played, college, and pro football. The 1949 movie, The Kid from Cleveland, had 4 minutes of scenes from League Park. Johnny Kilbane had a boxing featherweight championship fight at League Park, 2 fights in 1918 and 1920, and a title fight in 1921. 1930, the welterweight title fight was at League Park. Tommy Freeman defeated Jack Thompson. There were Thanksgiving Day high school football games, St. Ignatius against Cathedral Latin. College football games, John Carroll University, Western Reserve, and Baldwin Wallace and Case. In the NFL, the Cleveland Bulldogs and the Cleveland Rams also played there, and the Cleveland Browns used it as a practice field until 1965. 1991 was the 100th anniversary of the creation of League Park, and Mel Harder and Bob Feller threw out ceremonial pitches. I'm reading a fine book. It's called The Victory Season, The End of World War II and the Birth of Baseball's Golden Age by Robert Weintraub, 2013. And it's all about the 1946 MLB season. Branch Rickey met Jackie Robinson in 1945 and signed him for the Dodgers. And Rickey said this to Robinson, quote, "Only he who has conquered himself can conquer his enemies." So he was basically saying that Robinson, was going to have some tough times, and he'd have to, have self-control. Giovanni Papini, and that was a quote, actually, that Rickey used from Giovanni Papini's The Life of Christ. The Pittsburgh Courier wrote this about Jackie Robinson, that Robinson had, quote, "the hopes, aspirations, and ambitions of 13 million black Americans heaped upon his broad, sturdy shoulders." So this was major world history, really. Stan Musial was offered a $50,000 bonus and a $125,000 contract to play over 5 years to play in Mexico. The Mexican League was trying to lure MLB players, and many of them were tempted because there was no free agency and salaries were really way too low. However, he stayed with the Cardinals and got a raise up to $19,000 a year. So he would have had more money. And Musial said, quote, "My dad came over from Poland. He worked in a steel mill in Donora, Pennsylvania. He worked hard, but he never kicked. This was his dream, the good old USA. I want our little family to be together right here in America." In 1946, there was a beer shortage because hops and barley were needed for the starving masses who were facing famine in Europe. Severe hardships in Europe after the Second World War. U.S. President Harry Truman said, quote, "Millions will die unless we eat and drink less." The 1946 All-Star Game was played at Fenway Park in Boston. Rip Sewell, a pitcher for the Cardinals, had an eephus pitch, which it was very slow. It would go 25 feet up in the air. And in that game, Sewell threw an eephus pitch that Ted Williams had a 3-run homer, helping the American League to win the All-Star Game 12-0. Now, a few years ago, in 2013, so that's 6 years ago, there were 1,000 World War II veterans were dying every day. Of course, 1946 was right after the war. You had all these veterans. Robert Weintraub, in his book, quoted Cicero in his book, The Victory Season, about which again is about the 1946 MLB season. And his quote is this, quote, "The life of the dead is placed in the memory of the living." So that's what these videos are all about. That's what history is all about, is remembering people, and remember people who are gone. Now, for the Tribe, Alva Bradley was the owner at the beginning of the season, but he sold the ownership group. Of course, he was the leader of the ownership group. They sold in the summer, and Bradley was the head of the Tribe ownership group from 1927 to 1946. He and his group sold the team to Bill Veeck in June 1946. Bradley owned a real estate company, and he was treasurer of United States Coal Company. He died in 1953 in Delray Beach, Florida, at age 69. The Sporting News wrote that, quote, "Alva Bradley brought to the national pastime calmness, dignity, and honesty of purpose, which helped us through some of the most dangerous times, the long years of the Great Depression and World War II." Alva Bradley. Now, Roger Peckinpah started the season as general manager. He resigned in the middle of the season after Bill Veeck bought the team. And Peckinpah was the Tribe GM from 1942 to 1946. And again, after Bill Veeck bought the team in July, Peckinpah resigned. And after that, Peckinpah was the Buffalo Bisons in the minor leagues GM from 1946 to 1947. He was a manufacturer's rep for Cleveland Oak Belting until 1976, when he retired at age 85. He died the following year, 1977, in Cleveland. And Peckinpah had played for the Cleveland Naps in 1910 from 1912 to 1913. He was the Tribe manager from 1928 to 1933 and in 1941. Roger Peckinpah. Bill Veeck arrived in Cleveland and became the owner and general manager when he and his group bought the Cleveland Indians on June 22nd. And he was the Tribe owner from 1946 to 1949. Veeck was born in 1914 in Chicago, Illinois, and died in 1986 in Chicago at age 71. He won a World Series title as the owner of the Cleveland Indians in 1948. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1991. His nickname was Sport Shirt. He was the owner of the Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Browns, and the Chicago White Sox twice. In 1947, as the owner of the Tribe, he signed Larry Doby, who became the first African-American in the American League. Veeck was responsible for many innovations and contributions to baseball. His father, William Veeck Sr., was the president of the Chicago Cubs, and Bill, as a boy, was a popcorn vendor at Wrigley Field for the Cubs. It was his idea to plant ivy on the walls at Wrigley Field. 1940, Veeck bought the Milwaukee Brewers in the minor leagues and won 3 pennants in 5 years. He sold the team and made a profit of $275,000. His autobiography is Veeck as in Wreck. In the Second World War, Veeck spent 3 years in the U.S. Marine Corps in an artillery unit. He was in the Solomon Islands, and there was a recoil of an artillery piece which crushed his leg. Eventually, his foot was amputated, and he had 36 operations on his leg. And over the years, he had a wooden leg. Veeck was an inveterate smoker, and he had holes in his wooden leg that he used as an ashtray. 1942, Veeck tried to buy the Philadelphia Phillies and sign Negro League stars, but MLB Commissioner Judge Landis blocked the sale. Veeck moved the Tribe permanently to the stadium in 1947. After he signed Larry Doby, three of the players on the Indians were against Doby, and Veeck traded or released those 3 players. He also signed Satchel Paige, a tremendous Negro League player, in 1948 at age 42, the oldest rookie in MLB history. Veeck was a very creative promoter. In Milwaukee, he hired Max Patkin as a coach, and the clown prince of baseball. In 1949, Veeck's first wife divorced him, and he had to sell the team to pay the divorce settlement. This was a tremendous tragedy, really, for Cleveland sports fans. 1951, as owner of the St. Louis Browns, he signed Eddie Gadel, who was 3'7", who went into a game to pinch hit wearing the number 1/8. In 1959, Veeck was the owner of the Chicago White Sox, and they won their first pennant since the 1919 Black Sox. Veeck had an exploding scoreboard with the White Sox sound effects and fireworks when a White Sox player would hit a home run. He also put surnames on the back of players' uniforms, which became what most teams adopted. He bought the White Sox again in 1975 after he'd sold them. 1976, he had the White Sox wearing short pants. 1979, he had a promotion, Disco Demolition Night, where fans were supposed to bring in disco records and have them destroyed. And there was a riot. Morris Eckhouse, the Cleveland baseball historian, wrote, quote, "The Bill Veeck era in Cleveland is the one by which all others are measured. In just 3 years, Veeck's Indians created memories to last a lifetime." He was only 32 years old when he bought the Tribe in 1946, and he received the first Cleveland Indians Man of the Year award from the Cleveland Baseball Writers. He's the only Tribe owner to receive that award. Terry Pluto wrote, quote, "My father loved Bill Veeck because he never wore a tie. He loved Bill Veeck because he saw Veeck limping around the stadium, greeting fans, many by name. The Depression was over. World War II was over. In 1946, almost anything seemed possible if people just worked together. Hey, that's how we won the war, right? Bill Veeck would sit in the bleachers and talking with the fans, trying to get their input. And he learned that no one could understand the public address system in Cleveland. And I'm not sure if that's the stadium or league park. So he installed a new sound system. The fans were cleaning their seats with handkerchiefs, so Veeck ordered that every seat be cleaned before every game. He also had clean bathrooms for the ladies. Terry Pluto wrote, quote, "It seemed like everything Veeck did had an exclamation point after it. He had circus acts, fireworks, post-game entertainment, ladies' day, nylon stockings given away to the ladies." Veeck paid $1.6 million for the tribe, and his main partner was Harry Grabiner. Veeck owned 30% of the team. In total, there were 20 part owners in his group, including Bob Hope, the comedian. Franklin Whitey Lewis, Cleveland sports writer, wrote about Bill Veeck in 1948. He called him, quote, "the most ambitious and resourceful showman in the history of baseball was on the loose." Veeck also had an orchestra performing at every game. He installed a teepee in center field at League Park. Veeck traveled all over Ohio giving speeches to fans around the state, and who started coming to Cleveland to watch tribe games. One of his promotions, orchids, were given away to the first 20,000 women to come to a game at the stadium. He installed a fence in the outfield at the stadium to make it more hitter-friendly. Veeck's father died when Bill was only 19, so he had to drop out of college. Veeck, he loved reading books, especially the classics. But he did not graduate from high school, but he went to college at Kenyon in Gambier, Ohio. As a freshman, Veeck was drunk one night and he fell 4 stories to the ground, broke both his legs. As I said, his father died. He had to stop college and work for 8 years for the Chicago Cubs in the front office. As the Indians' owner, he had the stadium ushers. He had them wear uniforms, blue coats, trousers with gold stripes, and white shirts, blue neckties, and they had to be clean-shaven and their shoes polished. Fans were allowed to keep foul balls by Bill Veeck's order. Groundskeeper Emil Bossard was retained, and he's considered the best in MLB. I'm reading a fine book. The title is Bill Veeck, Baseball's Greatest Maverick by Paul Dickson, 2012. There's a quote by Doug Moe, quote, "Bill Veeck, my choice for the most colorful baseball guy of all time. It's more than that. Give me a last supper with half a dozen people of my choosing, and Veeck is at the table." Paul Dickson wrote, quote, "Bill Veeck was a transformational figure in the history of baseball. Nonconformist, visionary, and showman extraordinaire. He spent a lifetime challenging baseball's staid establishment." Veeck had a bad fall at an airport at one point, and the attendant said, quote, "Can I get you a doctor?" And Veeck said, "No, it's the wooden leg. Get me a carpenter." Paul Dickson wrote, quote, "He was a prime mover in the racial integration of the game. He was the first to integrate the American League when he signed Larry Doby 11 weeks after Jackie Robinson debuted in the National League. By the beginning of the 1949 season, he had 14 black players under contract, including future stars Orestes Minnie Minoso and Luke Easter. His wildly innovative marketing techniques drew in so many fans that he set records for ballpark attendance. Elements of the game we take for granted today, the designated hitter, interleague play, the playoff system, free agency, were all things Veeck advocated many years before they went into effect. Hank Greenberg, who ended up working with Veeck in Cleveland, said, quote, "Bill Veeck brought baseball into the 20th century. Before Bill, baseball was just winning and losing, but he made it fun to be at the ballpark." As the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, Veeck had a problem with graffiti in the men's bathroom, so Veeck installed a blackboard with a message imploring those who could make anonymous messages to pick up chalk and write there. Veeck interacted with the fans a lot at games, and he was interested in what they liked, what they didn't like, suggestions and complaints. As the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers in the Second World War in 1943, Veeck scheduled 10:30 a.m. games so night shift workers could attend. And Veeck treated fans to coffee and donuts at those games and sold cereal at a bargain price. He supported the Red Cross. If you donated a pint of blood, you'd get a week pass to the ballpark. He would shake hands with fans entering the ballpark and exiting. In August 1943, manager Charlie Grimm's, it was his 45th birthday with the Milwaukee Brewers, and Veeck had a 12-foot wide birthday cake delivered to the field, out of which 6 dancing girls emerged, along with a pitcher, Julio Acosta, that Veeck had signed, and Grimm reportedly said he was floor-strucken. Paul Dickson wrote about 1946 and the Second World War, quote, "America was ready to celebrate, and the place to celebrate was at the ballpark." After Bill Veeck bought the Tribe, he was dedicated to good hot dogs at the ballpark and mustard. Chris Axelrod wrote, quote, "Every year Bill Veeck would review the mustard to make sure it was just right. A little on the dark side with a touch of horseradish." Andy McPhail wrote about how much MLB owners hated Bill Veeck, the other owners, quote, "For starters, they hated him because he sat in the bleachers. They really hated that. It was a deeply disturbing gesture to these men who saw themselves as removed from the people who paid to come to their games." Bill Veeck. Now there had been no Tribe games on the radio in 1945 because of the war, and the first part of 1946, no games were on the radio. And as soon as he bought the team, Veeck had games broadcast. The broadcasters in 1946 for the Tribe included Jack Graney, Bob Neal, Earl Harper, Don Campbell, and Tom Manning on the radio stations WGAR on AM, WHK, WJW, and WTAM. Of course, the most famous of these was Jack Graney, who played for the Cleveland Naps and Cleveland Indians between 1908 and then from 1910 to 1922, and was a Tribe radio broadcaster from 1932 to 1953. Jack Graney. Now, the coaching staff, Ski Melillo was back. Melillo was a Tribe coach between 1939 and 1940, in 1942, from 1945 to 1948, and in 1950. Ski Melillo. Buster Mills was a coach for the Tribe. He also played a little outfield, and he was a Tribe coach just in 1946. And as a Tribe player in 1942, Mills batted .270. He was a Tribe player in 1942. Now he played 9 games in 1946. Hit .273, 6 hits and 22 at bats. Scored a run, had 3 RBIs and 3 walks. Buster Mills. George Suss was back. Suss was a Tribe coach between 1941 and 1949. George Suss. Lou Boudreau was back as the Tribe player manager, the starting shortstop and manager. Boudreau had a fine year. He batted .293 with 151 hits. He scored 51 runs, 30 doubles, 6 triples, 6 home runs, 62 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 40 walks in 140 games. Boudreau was a Tribe player between 1938 and 1941, and the Tribe player manager from 1942 to 1950. 1946 was the start of the Boudreau shift against Ted Williams. He'd have almost all the players to the right of second base, since Williams was such a pull hitter. 3 infielders between first and second. The third baseman would be right behind second. And this was, of course, if Ted Williams wanted to, he could just bunt down the third base side and easily get an easy hit. But generally, he would still try to hit because he liked to hit the ball hard. Lou Boudreau was not an All-Star in 1946, and Bill Veeck had a promotion, a night for the greatest shortstop ever left off the All-Star team. Again, on July 14th, the Boudreau shift started in Fenway Park in Boston. Life magazine reported, quote, "On July 14th, French-blooded Lou Boudreau, playing manager of the Cleveland Indians, celebrated a baseball Bastille Day by trying to guillotine the league-leading Red Sox mighty Ted Williams." Lou Boudreau. Jim Hegan was the catcher. Hegan batted .236 with 64 hits. He scored 29 runs, 11 doubles, 5 triples, 17 RBIs, a stolen base, 17 walks in 88 games. Hegan was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1957. He'd been in the U.S. Coast Guard in the Second World War from 1943 to 1945. Jim Hegan. Les Fleming was at first base. Fleming batted .278 with 85 hits. He scored 40 runs, 17 doubles, 5 triples, 8 home runs, 42 RBIs, a stolen base, 50 walks in 99 games. And Fleming was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942 and from 1945 to 1947. Les Fleming. Dutch Meyer was at second base. Meyer batted .232 with 48 hits. He scored 13 runs, 5 doubles, 3 triples, 16 RBIs, 26 walks in 72 games. And Meyer was with Cleveland from 1945 to 1946, and this was the end of his MLB career. Dutch Meyer. Ken Keltner was at third base. Keltner batted .241 with 96 hits. He scored 47 runs, 17 doubles, a triple, 13 home runs, 45 RBIs, 30 walks in 116 games. Keltner was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1944, and from 1946 to 1949. And Keltner had been in the U.S. Navy in 1945 in the Second World War. Ken Keltner. George Case was in left field. Case batted .225 with 109 hits. He scored 46 runs, 23 doubles, 4 triples, 1 home run, 22 RBIs, league-leading 28 stolen bases, 34 walks in 118 games. Case was born in 1915 in Trenton, New Jersey, and died in 1989 in Trenton at age 73. For his career, he batted .282 with 21 home runs and 377 RBIs and 349 stolen bases. Case played for the Washington Senators and Cleveland Indians between 1937 and 1947. He was a 4-time All-Star in 1939 and from 1943 to 1945. Case was a 6-time American League stolen base leader from 39 to 43 and then 46. He was possibly MLB's fastest player from the 1920s to the 1950s. He's the only player to lead MLB in stolen bases 5 years in a row. Case had won 6 American League stolen base titles, which tied Ty Cobb. The record was later broken by Louis Aparicio. His 349 career steals ranks 9th in MLB, ranked 9th at the end of his career. In December of 1945, he was traded to the Tribe for Jeff Heath. There was a Bill Veeck promotion, a race of Case against Jesse Owens in the 100-yard dash, and Jesse Owens won. And he retired because he had spinal trouble, which plagued him throughout his career. After he retired, he ran a sporting goods store in Trenton, New Jersey. He coached the Rutgers baseball team from 1950 to 1960 and won a title in 1950. He was a coach for the Washington Senators and Minnesota Twins, and was a manager for 2 years in the minor leagues and an instructor for the Yankees and the Seattle Mariners, and died of emphysema. George Case. Pat Seary was in center field. Seary batted .225 with 91 hits. He scored 57 runs, 17 doubles, 2 triples, 26 home runs, 62 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 65 walks, 101 strikeouts in 117 games. And Seary was with Cleveland from 1943 to 1948. Fat Pat Seary. Hank Edwards was in right field. Edwards batted .301 with 138 hits. 62 runs scored, 33 doubles, 16 triples, 10 home runs, 54 RBIs, a stolen base, 43 walks in 124 games. Edwards was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1943, and from 1946 to 1949. He was in the U.S. military in the Second World War between 1944 and 1945. Hank Edwards. Now, the bench players included Jack Conway, who played some second base. Conway batted .225 with 58 hits. He scored 24 runs, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 18 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 20 walks in 68 games. And Conway was with Cleveland in 1941 and from 1946 to 1947. Jack Conway. Felix Makowitz played some outfield. Makowitz batted .260 with 67 hits. He scored 35 runs, 15 doubles, 4 triples, 16 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 16 walks in 78 games. And Makowitz was with Cleveland from 1945 to 1947. Felix Makowitz. Ray Mack played some second base. Mack batted .205 with 35 hits. He scored 13 runs, 6 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 9 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 23 walks in 61 games. Mack was with Cleveland from 1938 to 1946, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1947. Now, Bob Feller threw a no-hitter in 1946. The last out was on a ground ball to Mack, who stumbled and fell to his knees but made the play to end the game and save Bob Feller's no-hitter. Ray Mack. Frankie Hayes was a spare catcher. Hayes batted .256 with 40 hits. He scored 11 runs, 12 doubles, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, a stolen base, 21 walks in 51 games. Hayes was with Cleveland from 1945 to 1946, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1947. Frankie Hayes. Don Ross played some third base. Ross batted .268 with 41 hits. He scored 12 runs, 7 doubles, 3 home runs, 14 RBIs, 17 walks in 55 games. And Ross was with Cleveland from 1945 to 1946, and this was the end of his MLB career. Don Ross. Heinz Becker played some first base. Becker batted .299 with 44 hits. He scored 15 runs, 10 doubles, a triple, 17 RBIs, a stolen base, 23 walks in 50 games. Becker was born in 1915 in Berlin, Germany, in Europe, and died in 1991 in Dallas, Texas at age 76. For his career, he batted .263 with 2 home runs and 47 RBIs. Becker played for the Chicago Cubs and Cleveland Indians from 1943 to 1947. He was one of 27 German-born MLB players all time, and a key player for the 1945 Chicago Cubs when they won the National League title. He was traded to the Tribe by the Cubs on June 26, 1946 for Mickey Rocco and cash. In the minor leagues, Becker played for the Corpus Christi Aces, the Dallas Eagles, Dallas Rebels, Milwaukee Brewers, Nashville Vols, Oklahoma City Indians, Palestine Pals, Rain Ricebirds, Seattle Rainiers, and Tyler Trojans. Heinz Becker. Gene Woodling played some outfield. Woodling batted .188 with 25 hits. He scored 8 runs, had a double, 4 triples, 9 RBIs, a stolen base, 16 walks in 61 games. Woodling was with Cleveland in 1943 and 1946, and from 1955 to 1957. Gene Woodling. Mickey Rocco played some first base. Rocco batted .245 with 24 hits. He scored 8 runs, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 14 RBIs, a stolen base, 15 walks in 34 games. Rocco was with Cleveland from 1943 to 1946, and this was the end of his MLB career in 1946. Mickey Rocco. Bob Lemon played some outfield and pitched. Lemon batted .180 with 16 hits. He had scored 9 runs, 3 doubles, a home run, 4 RBIs, 7 walks in 55 games. As a pitcher, Lemon was 4-5 with an ERA of 2.49, 32 games, 5 starts, a complete game, a save, 94 innings pitched, and 39 strikeouts. Lemon was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1958. He was in the U.S. Navy from 1943 to 1945 in the Second World War. On opening day, Lemon was playing center field and made a sensational game-saving catch to preserve the victory for Bob Feller. So Lemon was transitioning into a pitcher and would become one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Bob Lemon. Sherm Lawler was a spare catcher. Lawler batted .242 with 15 hits. He scored 7 runs, 6 doubles, a home run, 9 RBIs, 5 walks in 28 games. Lawler was born in 1924 in Durham, Arkansas, and died in 1977 in Springfield, Missouri at age 53. For his career, he batted .264 with 155 home runs. Wow, 808 RBIs, really good. Lawler played for the Cleveland Indians, New York Yankees, St. Louis Browns, and Chicago White Sox between 1946 and 1963, so he was a rookie in 1946. Lawler was a 9-time All-Star. 1950, from 1954 to 56, and from 58 to 60. He won 2 World Series titles in 1947 with the Yankees and 1966 with the Baltimore Orioles as a coach. Lawler won 3 Gold Gloves between 1957 and 1959. He was selected as a member of the Chicago White Sox All-Century team in 2000. Lawler grew up in the rural Ozark Mountains of Arkansas. He was a bat boy for the Fayetteville, Arkansas in the 1930s. In 1945, in the minors, he played for the Baltimore Orioles, hit 34 home runs, and led the International League with a .364 average, and was MVP. He was a coach for the Baltimore Orioles and the Oakland A's. In the minors, and in the minors with the A's, he owned a bowling alley in Springfield, Missouri, and died of cancer at age 53. In the minor leagues, he played for the Newark Bears, and he also played for the Pittsburgh State Gorillas baseball team, Sherm Lawler. Jimmy Wasdell was a utility player. Wasdell batted .268 with 11 hits. He scored a run, had 4 RBIs, a stolen base, 4 walks in 32 games. Wasdell was born in 1914 in Cleveland, Ohio, and died in 1983 in Newport Richey, Florida at age 69. For his career, he batted .273 with 29 home runs and 341 RBIs. Wasdell played for the Washington Senators, Brooklyn Dodgers, Pittsburgh Pirates, Philadelphia Phillies, and Cleveland Indians between 1937 and 1947. In 1941, he won a National League title with the Brooklyn Dodgers. For his career, he had 782 hits, 109 doubles, 34 triples, 29 stolen bases. Wasdell in the minor leagues played for the Zanesville Grays, Nashville Vols, Minneapolis Millers, Chattanooga Lookouts, and Birmingham Barons. Jimmy Wasdell. Dale Mitchell played some outfield. Mitchell batted .432, really good, 19 hits, 44 at-bats. He scored 7 runs, 3 doubles, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, a walk in 11 games. Mitchell was born in 1921 in Colony, Oklahoma, and died in 1987 in Tulsa, Oklahoma at age 65. For his career, he batted .312 with 41 home runs and 403 RBIs. Mitchell played for the Cleveland Indians and Brooklyn Dodgers between 1946 and 1956. He's a 2-time All-Star in 1949 and 52 with the Tribe, and won a World Series title with Cleveland in 1948. He went to the University of Oklahoma and played on the Sooners baseball team. He had a .467 average there and hit .507 as a senior, which are still school records. In 1948, he was third in the batting race behind Ted Williams and Lou Boudreau in the American League. He won an American League title with the Tribe in 1954. In the 1956 World Series, Mitchell was the last out in Brooklyn Dodgers' Don Larsen's perfect game for the Yankees. He was one of the all-time toughest hitters to strike out. And there's a Dale Mitchell baseball park at the University of Oklahoma. Dale Mitchell. Tom Jordan was a spare catcher. Jordan batted .200 with 7 hits. He scored 2 runs, had a double, a home run, 3 RBIs, a stolen base, 3 walks in 14 games. Jordan was born in 1919 in Lawton, Oklahoma, and is still alive at age 99. For his career, he batted .240 with 1 home run and 6 RBIs. Jordan played for the Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, and St. Louis Browns between 1944 and 1948. He had a 20-year career, 20-year career, and starting in 1938 in the minors and until 1957 as a player-manager in the minors. He was traded to Cleveland on July 5, 1946 by the White Sox for Frankie Hayes. His son Tom Jr. was the winning pitcher in the championship game in the Little League World Series in 1956. In December of 2018, at age 99, Jordan was the oldest MLB player. In the minor leagues, he played for the Abbeville A's, Albuquerque Dukes, Austin Pioneers, Kansas City Blues, Milwaukee Brewers, Roswell Rockets, San Antonio Missions, Shreveport Sports, Tecoletes de Nuevo Laredo in Mexico, and the Waterloo Hawks. Tom Jordan. Howie Moss played some third base. Moss batted .063 with 2 hits. In 32 at-bats, he scored 2 runs, 3 walks in 8 games. Moss was born in 1919 in Gastonia, North Carolina, and died in 1989 in Baltimore, Maryland at age 70. For his career, he batted .097 with an RBI. Moss played for the New York Giants, Cincinnati Reds, and Cleveland Indians between 1942 and 1946. He was a prodigious home run hitter in the minor leagues. They called him Howitzer, one of the most feared sluggers in the International League in the 1940s. In 1944, in the International League, he was the MVP. In 1945, he was in the U.S. Coast Guard in the Second World War. In 1944, he led the International League with 27 home runs. In 1946, he had 38 home runs. In 1947, 53. And in 1948, 33. His 53 home runs in the 47th year is still an International League record. In 1960, Moss was inducted into the International League Hall of Fame. In the minor leagues, he played for the Augusta Tigers, Baltimore Orioles, Columbus Redbirds, Fort Smith Giants, Gastonia Rockets, Greenwood Chiefs, Jersey City Giants, St. Petersburg Saints, and the Springfield Cubs. Howie Moss. Eddie Robinson played some first base. Robinson batted .400 with 12 hits and 30 at-bats. He scored 6 runs, had a double, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs, 2 walks in 8 games. Robinson was with Cleveland in 1942, from 1946 to 1948, and in 1957. From 1943 to 45, he was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. I'm reading a fine book. It's called Lucky Me, My 65 Years in Baseball by Eddie Robinson with C. Paul Rogers III, 2011. 1946, in the minor leagues, Robinson was playing for the Baltimore Orioles in the International League. He was the MVP. As a boy, Robinson picked cotton in Texas every summer for half a cent a pound. The most he ever earned was 50 cents a day. During the 1947 season, Robinson and his wife, Elaine, lost a 3-year-old daughter, Robbie Ann, to a brain tumor. Very tragic. And Robinson wrote, quote, "Only those who have lost a young child can comprehend what it is like and how the loss affects you emotionally." Regarding Bill Vack, Eddie Robinson wrote, quote, "Bill had lost a leg as a result of World War II and had a wooden peg leg. He was a heavy smoker, and he often had great fun stubbing out a lit cigarette on his wooden leg to shock someone who wasn't aware of his condition. That trick was hard on his trousers, however." Eddie Robinson. Rusty Peters played some shortstop. Peters batted .286 with 6 hits and 21 at-bats. He had 2 RBIs, a stolen base, a walk in 9 games. Peters was with Cleveland from 1940 to 1944 and in 1946. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1947, and Peters was in the U.S. Army in 1945. Rusty Peters. Jackie Price played some shortstop. He batted .231 with 3 hits and 13 at-bats. He scored a run in 7 games. Price was born in 1912 in Winborn, Massachusetts, and died in 1967 in San Francisco, California at age 54. He played for the Cleveland Indians in 1946. He delighted the fans with his skills. He was also an entertainer. He could bat hanging upside down and throw 3 balls to 3 different players in one movement. He was another clown prince of baseball along with Max Patkin. He released a pair of 5-foot boa constrictors on a train, which led Cleveland to releasing him. He briefly teamed up with Max Patkin. 1967, Price committed suicide with hanging. Tragic. He was in the U.S. Army in the Second World War. In the 1940s and 50s, Price entertained fans throughout MLB and in the minor leagues. He was paid $500 a game in MLB, $300 in the Pacific Coast League, and $300 or $200 in the minor leagues. And he would travel 40,000 miles a year in his car with his act. He also went to Canada and Cuba. He starred in the film short 1947 Diamond Demon. However, he had alcoholism and depression. So, what a talented but tragic person. Jackie Price. Ralph Weigel was a spare catcher. Weigel batted .167 with 2 hits and 12 at-bats. He had an RBI in 6 games. Weigel was born in 1921 in Coldwater, Ohio, and died in 1992 in Memphis, Tennessee at age 70. For his career, he batted .230 with 30 RBIs. Weigel played for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, and Washington Senators between 1946 and 1949. They called him Wig. His pro career was from 1940 to 1949. From 1943 to 45, he was in the U.S. Coast Guard in the Second World War. In the minor leagues, he played for the Charleston Senators, Chattanooga Lookouts, and Wilkes-Barre Barons. Ralph Weigel. Ted Sepkowski played some infield. Sepkowski batted .500 with 4 hits and 8 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a double, and RBI in 2 games. Sepkowski was with Cleveland in 1942, and from 1946 to 1947. From 1943 to 45, he was in the U.S. Coast Guard in the Second World War. Ted Sepkowski. Blas Monaco played some second base. He batted 6 times, did not have a hit. Scored 2 runs, had a walk, struck out once in 12 games. Monaco was with Cleveland in 1937 and 1946, and this was the end of his MLB career. Blas Monaco. Charlie Brewster was a spare shortstop. Brewster batted twice, did not have a hit, walked once, struck out once in 3 games. Brewster was born in 1916 in Marthaville, Louisiana, and died in 2000 in Alma, Georgia at age 83. For his career, he batted .221 with a .904 fielding percentage and 14 RBIs. He played for the Cincinnati Reds, Philadelphia Phillies, Chicago Cubs, and Cleveland Indians between 1943 and 1946. He went to Southern Arkansas University and played on the baseball team there. In the minor leagues, he played for the Abbeville A's, Savannah Indians, Waycross Bears, Atlanta Crackers, Durham Bulls, Nashville Vols, Los Angeles Angels, Milwaukee Brewers, Rochester Red Wings, St. Hyacinth Saints, the Gainesville G-Men, Leesburg Packers, and the DeLand Red Hats. Charlie Brewster. Now, the pitching staff was led by the best pitcher in baseball in 1946, Bob Feller, whose record had his best year. He was 26-15 with an ERA of 2.18. He led the league in 48 games. He led the league with 42 starts, also led the league with 36 complete games, led the league with 10 shutouts, 4 saves. He also led the league with 371 innings pitched. He had 348 strikeouts, which was one short of Rube Waddell's all-time record of 349, which was later broken by Nolan Ryan. As a hitter, Feller batted .129 with 16 hits. He scored 9 runs, had a double, a triple, 7 RBIs, 9 walks, and struck out 49 times. Feller was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1941, and from 1945 to 1956, and was a Tribe Goodwill Ambassador till the end of his life. He threw a no-hitter on April 30th against the Yankees, his second career no-hitter at Yankee Stadium. Feller won his 20th game on July 31st at League Park, a 4-1 one-hitter. As I said, this was Feller's greatest season, 1946. The All-Star game in Fenway Park, Feller had 3 innings pitched and 0 earned runs allowed. Feller's 1946 contract was $50,000 a year. He was offered $100,000 to play in Mexico, but he turned it down. And he said, quote, "No chili con carne baseball for me." In January of 46, Feller organized a baseball school for World War II veterans, helping them transition back to MLB in Tampa, Florida. And 186 players came, 66 signed pro contracts. Wheaties offered Feller $5,000 to break Rube Waddell's strikeout record. He had his 8th one-hitter, which broke the MLB record set by Old Hoss Radbourn, Bob Feller. Red Embry was 8-12 with an ERA of 3.47, 28 games, 26 starts, 8 complete games, 200 innings pitched, and 87 strikeouts. Embry batted .186 with 13 hits. He scored 6 runs, 3 doubles, 6 RBIs, 2 walks. Embry was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1944 to 1947. Red Embry. Allie Reynolds was 11-15 with an ERA of 3.88. 31 games, 28 starts, 9 complete games, 3 shutouts, 183 1/3 innings pitched, and 107 strikeouts. Reynolds batted .222 with 14 hits. He scored a run, had 9 RBIs, 2 walks, struck out 11 times in 35 games. Reynolds was with Cleveland from 1942 to 1946. After the season, on October 11th, he was traded to the New York Yankees for second baseman Joe Gordon. His MLB career, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1954. Allie Reynolds. Steve Gromek had a tough year. He was 5-15 with an ERA of 4.33, 29 games, 21 starts, 5 complete games, 2 shutouts, 4 saves, 153 2/3 innings pitched, and 75 strikeouts. Gromek batted .196 with 11 hits. He scored 4 runs, had a stolen base, 2 walks, and struck out 14 times in 37 games. And Gromek was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1953. Steve Gromek. Mel Harder was 5-4 with an ERA of 3.41, 13 games, 12 starts, 4 complete games, a shutout, 92 1/3 innings pitched, and 21 strikeouts. Harder batted .086 with 3 hits and 35 at-bats. He scored a run, had an RBI and a walk, and struck out 14 times. Harder was a Tribe player between 1928 and 1947, a Tribe coach from 1948 to 1963. He threw out the first pitch at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1931, and he threw out the last ceremonial pitch at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1993. Mel Harder. Joe Krakowskis was 2-5 with an ERA of 5.51, 29 games, 5 starts, a save, 47 1/3 innings pitched, and 20 strikeouts. Krakowskis batted 10 times, did not have a hit, and struck out 4 times. Krakowskis was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942 and in 1946. This was the end of his MLB career. Joe Krakowskis. Joe Barry was a relief pitcher. Barry was 3-6 with an ERA of 3.38. 21 games, a save, 37 1/3 innings pitched, and 16 strikeouts. Barry batted .286 with 2 hits and 7 at-bats. He scored a run and had an RBI. He was born in 1904 in Huntsville, Arkansas, and died in Anaheim, California in 1958 at age 53. For his career, he was 21-22 with an ERA of 2.45 and 117 strikeouts. Barry played for the Chicago Cubs, Philadelphia Athletics, and Cleveland Indians between 1942 and 1946. He had an 18-year minor league career. Before the Second World War, he had a chance to pitch in MLB. He was a 39-year-old rookie. In 1945, led the National League with games played with 52. Barry died in a car accident. 1939 with the Cubs, he won 10 games in relief, tied the National League lead in saves with 12. Joe Barry. Pete Sener was another relief pitcher. Sener was 0-2 with an ERA of 4.97. 21 games, a save, 29 innings pitched, and 6 strikeouts. Sener batted 3 times, did not have a hit, and struck out once. Sener was with Cleveland from 1942 to 1943 and from 1945 to 1946. This was the end of his MLB career. Pete Sener. Charlie Gassaway was 1-1 with an ERA of 3.91. 13 games, 6 starts, 50 2/3 innings pitched, and 23 strikeouts. Gassaway batted .067 with 1 hit and 15 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, 2 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 9 times. Gassaway was born in 1918 in Gassaway, Tennessee, and died in 1992 in Miami, Florida at age 73. For his career, he was 5-9 with an ERA of 4.04 and 180 1/3 innings pitched. Gassaway pitched for the Chicago Cubs, Philadelphia Athletics, and Cleveland Indians between 1944 and 1946. They called him Sheriff. The minor leagues, he won 153 games, 17 in 1944 for the Milwaukee Brewers. In the minor leagues, he played for the Binghamton Triplets, Elmira Pioneers, Jersey City Giants, Montreal Royals, Nashville Bulls, Oakland Oaks, Pensacola Pilots, Tri-City Braves, Tyler Trojans, and the Wenatchee Chiefs. And he worked as a scout for the Kansas City Athletics. Charlie Gassaway. Don Black was 1-2 with an ERA of 4.53, 18 games, 4 starts, 43 2/3 innings pitched, and 15 strikeouts. Black batted .200 with 2 hits and 10 at-bats. He scored a run, had a double, an RBI, and struck out 3 times. Black was born in 1917 in Salix, Iowa, and died in 1959 in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, at age 41. For his career, he was 34-55 with an ERA of 4.35 and 293 strikeouts. Black pitched for the Philadelphia Athletics and Cleveland Indians between 1943 and 1948. He threw a no-hitter on July 10, 1947 with the Tribe. He joined Alcoholics Anonymous in 1945 and got sober and stayed sober. On September 13, 1948, he suffered a cerebral hemorrhage on the field, which ended his career. He worked as a sports announcer and a salesman. 1947, with the Tribe, he had a tough 5-3 victory, and someone in the press box said, quote, "I wonder what he'd give for a slug of bourbon." And Black responded, "All I wanted in that situation was a fresh stick of chewing gum. Bourbon doesn't tempt me." After his 1947 no-hitter and the season, he returned to his hometown of Salix, Iowa, and was given a key to the city and was mayor for a day. They held Don Black Night on September 23, 1948, at the stadium to raise money to pay his medical bills. 76,772 fans came, and the money raised was $40,370 for Black. When the Tribe won the 1948 World Series title, Boudreaux said it was won in Black's honor. Black died in 1959 at home watching the Tribe on television. Don Black. Tom Farrick had no decisions and an ERA of 5.00. 9 games, a save, 18 innings pitched, and 9 strikeouts. Farrick batted .667, 2 hits and 3 at-bats and a double. Farrick was with Cleveland from 1942 and 1946. From 1943 to 45, he was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1952. Tom Ferrick. Ed Kleeman had no decisions and an ERA of 6.60, 9 games, 15 innings pitched, and 2 strikeouts. He batted once and struck out. Kleeman was with Cleveland from 1943 to 1948. Ed Kleeman. Vic Johnson was 0-1 with an ERA of 9.22, 9 games, a start, 13 2/3 innings pitched, and 3 strikeouts. He batted twice and did not have a hit and struck out once. Johnson was born in 1920 in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and died in 2005 at age 84. For his career, he was 6-8 with an ERA of 5.06 and 31 strikeouts. Johnson pitched for the Boston Red Sox and Cleveland Indians between 1944 and 1946. In the minor leagues, he played for the Eau Claire Bears, Scranton Red Sox, Louisville Colonels, New Orleans Pelicans, Nashville Vols, Baltimore Orioles, Oklahoma City Indians, and the Anniston Rams. Vic Johnson. Bob Kuzawa was 1-0 with an ERA of 3.00. 2 games, both starts, 12 innings pitched, and 4 strikeouts. Kuzawa batted .200 with 1 hit and 5 at-bats and struck out 3 times. He was born in 1923 in Wyandotte, Michigan, and died in 2017 in Wyandotte at age 93. For his career, he was 49-44, with an ERA of 4.05 and 446 strikeouts. Kuzawa pitched for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, Washington Senators, New York Yankees, Baltimore Orioles, Philadelphia Phillies, and Pittsburgh Pirates, and the St. Louis Cardinals between 1946 and 1957. He won 3 World Series titles with the New York Yankees from 1951 to 53. They called him Sarge. He was inducted into the National Polish-American Sports Hall of Fame. He got the saves in the final games of the 1951 and 52 World Series. They called him the White Rat. He was a military policeman in India in the Second World War. In the minor leagues, he played for the Columbus Jets, Mansfield Braves, San Diego Padres, and the Wilkes-Barre Barons. He also worked as a scout for the Kansas City and Oakland Athletics. Bob Kuzawa. Ray Flanagan was 0-1 with an ERA of 11.00. 3 games, 1 start, 9 innings pitched, and 2 strikeouts. Flanagan batted .500 with 1 hit and 2 at-bats, and he had a walk. He was born in 1923 in Morgantown, West Virginia, and died in 1993 in Baltimore, Maryland at age 70. For his career, he was 0-1 with an ERA of 11.00 and 9 strikeouts. He was with the Cleveland Indians in 1946. And from 1943 to 45, he was in the U.S. Army in Europe in the Second World War. He pitched in the minor leagues from 1941 to 1949. Ray Flanagan. Johnny Podgojny had no decisions and an ERA of 5.00. 6 games, 9 innings pitched, and 4 strikeouts. He did not bat. He was born in 1920 in Chester, Pennsylvania, and died in 1971 in Chester at age 50. For his career, he was 20-37 with an ERA of 4.20 and 129 strikeouts. Podgojny pitched for the Philadelphia Phillies, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Cleveland Indians between 1940 and 1946. In the minor leagues, he pitched for the Columbus Redbirds, Birmingham Barons, and Milwaukee Brewers. Johnny Podgojny. Les Weber was 1-1 with an ERA of 23.63. 4 games, 2 starts, 5 innings pitched, and 5 strikeouts. He batted once, did not have a hit, scored a run, and walked once. Weber was born in 1915 in Kelseyville, California, and died in 1986 in Santa Maria, California at age 71. For his career, he was 23-19 with an ERA of 4.19, 141 strikeouts. Weber pitched for the Brooklyn Dodgers and Cleveland Indians between 1942 and 1948. After he retired, he was a real estate broker. In 1943 with Brooklyn, he had a team record 54 games pitched. In the minor leagues, he played for the Seattle Rainiers. In 1944 with the Dodgers, there was a game he gave up 4 straight hits. He became frustrated and covered the baseball in dirt and threw the next hitter with, according to shortstop Bobby Bragan, quote, bits of dirt flying everywhere. Les Weber. And finally, Ralph McCabe was 0-1 with an ERA of 11.25. 1 game, which was a start, 4 innings pitched, and 3 strikeouts. He batted once and did not have a hit. He was born in 1918 in Napanee, Ontario, Canada, and died in 1974 in Windsor, Ontario, Canada at age 55. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1946, and they called him Mac. After the regular season, the World Series was played. The National League champions, St. Louis Cardinals, defeated the Boston Red Sox, the American League champions, 4-3. Hall of Famers in the World Series included umpires Cal Hubbard and Al Barlick. For the Cardinals, Stan Musial, Red Shane Dienst, and Enos Slaughter. For the Red Sox, manager Joe Cronin, Bobby Doerr, and Ted Williams. The Brooklyn Dodgers and St. Louis Cardinals finished the season in a tie for first. This was the first time this had happened in MLB history. So they had a 3-game playoff, and the Cardinals won that playoff series 2-0. Game 7 of the World Series, in the 8th inning, the game was tied at 3-3, and Enos Slaughter of the Cardinals scored from first on a single by Harry Walker. And that was the World Series winning run. They called it the Mad Dash, among the most memorable, dramatic moments in World Series history, when Enos Slaughter decided to go for it. Now, the MVPs for the American League, the MVP for the American League was Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox, and in the National League, Stan Musial of the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's the story of the 1946 Cleveland Indians, the beginning of the Bill Veeck era. What a year. God bless the fellows who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1946 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Spanish-American War veterans, First World War veterans, and Second World War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Staff Statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue Electricity, Severance Hall Stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story House happy people, Museum of Contemporary Art maniacs, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, Western Reserve Historical Society wonders, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Quicken Loans Arena enthusiasts, Cuyahoga Valley National Park pioneers, and Great Lakes Science Center supporters. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, Gladiators, and Fusion rule. Cleveland, City of Champions. Today is opening day in Cleveland. It's been 71 years since 1948. This is our year. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History, with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.